and thanks for joining us today on our episode of Feng Shui It. We have an amazing guest with us today. It's Pam Lorentz, and I didn't botch up her name as I always do. But she's here with us to talk to us about cranial sacral therapy today, which is a really cool therapy to receive. So we're going to get into that. But before we go over and talk about cranial sacral therapy, I want to make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss any episode of our show. And also you can get some cool tips about the information that we're talking about today. And so enough of me talking, let's get to the person of the hour that we want to get all this great information from, Pam. So welcome.
Thank you, Ivy. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, because I worked really hard to get you here to talk about this, because this is a topic that a lot of people understand that it's very, it's a useful type of therapy, but they just don't quite know what it is. So they'll hear me say, I went to cranial sacral therapy, and they're like, oh, that sounds really cool, but what is it? So that's what I want to really talk about today. What is cranial sacral therapy? Because I can't put it into words. I just knew what the experience was, right? So what is this type of therapy?
Well, thank you for asking that, because I get the same looks too. Cranial sacral is actually a light touch body therapy. And all that really means is I have hands on your body while you are dressed, and most of the time just lying on a massage table. So you're very comfortable throughout this session, and you feel me with my hands on the back of your body, coming up the spine, and on the front of the body, working up the midline of the body as well. And while I have my hands sandwiching your body, I'm actually feeling what's going on in the tissue. So I'm feeling for places that feel tight, that feel like they're a little bit strained or stressed, or feel congested. And when I say congested, I mean kind of puffy, like there's a lot of fluid underneath it. I think of the body as a water balloon.
Right.
And so when you hold a water balloon, you can feel all around it and feel what's happening inside of it just by holding your hands over it. It's the same thing with the body.
Got you. Okay. Now, this all sounds really cool. It sounds super complicated, and I don't think I'll ever be able to do something like this. I'll just keep coming to see you. But how in the world does someone figure this type of therapy out, and that it would be useful, truly beneficial for us? How did this come up? I mean, did somebody play with water balloons as a kid and was like, oh, let's try this on the body? I mean, but no, seriously. What's kind of the short history of this?
Well, cranial sacral therapy actually has a longer history, and it comes out of the study of osteopathy. So when you think of, there's two types of medical doctors. We have the traditional medical doctor, and we have an osteopathic doctor. Osteopathic doctors are trained in looking at the body in a holistic way. So it really began back in the Civil War. Dr. Stills was a medical surgeon at the time, and he was recognizing that things just weren't working the way he expected them to in terms of healing the body. There was a lot of diseases. The answer to injuries was typically amputations. And he had a tragic story in which he lost most of his family due to some diseases at the time. And he began to recognize that we're not helping the body. The body already has the ability to heal
itself, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And the things that we are doing more harm in some cases than they were actually benefiting the body. So he began looking at really several principles. And the first one being is that the body in itself is a whole organism. You can't look at one part happening, one knee injury, and not consider it's going to affect everything else. Exactly.
Your skeletal alignments and muscular, I mean, all these things, it all interconnects.
It all interconnects. So that's the first premise. And the second one is, as we said, that the body can heal itself.
Right.
We have to allow for the intelligence of the body to do its job.
And I'm going to interrupt you there, because I think that's something that I really want our viewers to understand, is that your body has an intelligence of its own. And given all of the things that your body needs in order to work properly, it can completely heal itself from any type of disease and any type of injury. And this is true of all of them. I mean, there's certain steps that we would need to take in order to ensure that the body can do that. But that's the key thing of most of what we talk about for all of these healing therapies, and that is the reliance of the intelligence of the body.
Yes.
The body knows how to heal itself. It knows what it needs. And unfortunately, we as humans, we're the ones that kind of screw things up, right? So I kind of screw things up when I want to eat a little bit too much sugar, right? Because my body doesn't need all that. So it can't work at its peak performance, basically, is what we're saying, is that when we provide the body with all the nutrients, proper rest, proper exercise, all these little ingredients put together, we're able to really heal ourselves, right? You know, Pam, one of the things that I find interesting is that, and you and I have talked about this before, is that the information that he had about being really relying on the body for that intelligence and for healing itself, this was the time of the Civil War, okay? So this wasn't the time of Googling, this wasn't iPads, I couldn't phone a nurse, I couldn't do any of these things. He really had that insight of saying, look within yourself, and this was not really a belief system in American culture at that time, right?
That's exactly true. And in fact, it was the time when we were beginning to pay more attention to the science of, rather than feeling into the wisdom of the body. So
Right.
It was a huge shift for us to be able to look at things that way.
Right. So how does cranial sacral therapy work? Because I felt the light touch. I don't really know what you were doing. I know what I felt afterwards, and I know the great experience I had following it. But how does it work?
You know, there's so much that we've yet to learn about all of how it does work within the body, but there are things that we do know. And we do know that with light or touch, we are able to access a different level of information than we are when we approach the body as something separate from ourselves. When we begin to really pay attention to what the body is trying to teach us and listening to it by a simple light touch, we can gain so much more information. In light touch, I can feel into the tissue of the body. I can feel what's happening underneath the skin. And beyond that, I can feel where there are places of tension, or I would say compression or restriction within the body that I might miss if I'm doing something that's involved in much more gross or superficial movement.
Okay. And when you're saying this, something instantly popped in my head, and I thought about a good comparison being to cranial sacral therapy with the light touch being similar with massage therapy, where you kind of go in there and kind of forcing the body to release and you know, move the knots or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a massage therapist, but you know, you're kind of going in real forcefully and doing it. In the same comparison to the difference between prayer and meditation. In prayer, we're making a request. We're asking for something. In meditation, we take time to be quiet and listen.
That's a perfect analogy, because really in cranial sacral work and all kinds of body work therapies, we're there to listen to the body rather than to tell the body what we want it to do.
Right.
We're taking away the natural intelligence and wisdom of the body when we determine the way it should look or how it should feel, instead of honoring that the body is already maintaining itself and doing self-correction.
Right, right. How does cranial sacral therapy perform? I mean, because we've talked about a little bit of light touch, and I experienced it, but honestly, I was so relaxed, I kind of fell asleep a little bit. So let's talk about how it's performed, just to let everyone know. Once you go into the office and you lay on the massage table, what would a person expect to feel?
Dr. Upledger, who really began the practice of cranial sacral therapy the way we know it today, developed what he called a 10-step protocol, so that every practitioner learns the basic 10 steps.
Gotcha.
And that's the place where we begin. Normally at the sacrum, which is the bone at the end of the spine, by putting one hand on that, I can feel the rhythm of what's happening within the body just from listening to the sacrum, that bone at the end. And from there, the hands progress up the spine. Same thing, listening to, as we move up the body, what's happening in the tissue around the abdomen, where all the digestive organs are. What's happening to the tissue where the organ and the spleen, the liver and the spleen are. And then moving up into lungs and heart. So we're not just feeling the skin, we're feeling into the organs, the soft tissue, even to the bones of the body, by noticing how that translates into pressure and tension on the surface.
So what does a person experience during this therapy? Because again, I told you, I was so relaxed. It was so peaceful for me. I literally fell asleep within moments of you starting.
That's what we're hoping that you're going to experience.
Right. But what would a person expect that will stay awake during this process? What will they expect to experience? Are they going to see things? Are they going to hear things? Are they going to smell things?
Well, they'll see my room. They'll hear the music playing in the background.
Right.
Maybe some aromatherapy. But generally, it's as unique as the person is.
Sure.
So, and I think we mentioned, some people like to get on the table, and it's an opportunity to deeply relax. And we want you relaxed. That allows me to feel more deeply into the tissue when your body's relaxed and you're not being in stress and tension.
Yeah,
exactly. But some people, that takes a little bit harder time to get into. And so we use different techniques to help encourage the body to relax more. The music, the aromatherapy, sometimes even using singing bowls will help the body to relax. And then generally, once the person gets into that place of relaxation, then they feel what it is to let go.
Gotcha.
Well, on our busy schedules, we never really remember how good it feels just to surrender the body into just being. And on the table with a practitioner at your side, you have enough trust and faith in them to just totally relax into it and allow your body then to start its own work.
And how long are the sessions? What's an average session for maybe your first time?
The first time I really recommend 90 minutes because we have a lot of exploration to do with each other. I need to understand what's happening from your perspective. I need to understand how that's showing up in the body. And then what is the body asking for? What kind of touch will help it to ease into relaxation?
Okay. How often should a person come to receive cranial sacral therapy?
That's a tough one, again, because it really depends on the individual.
Very individualized.
But what I would say is look at how long you've had the condition that brought you there.
Good point.
So if you've been struggling with a chronic issue for years, you're going to expect to do some
You're not going to
work.
fix it for me in like 20 minutes, right?
It could happen.
Sure.
It could happen.
But realistically, let's have good expectations that a couple of sessions may be needed in order to have some really big turns.
Yes.
Because we're not forcing the manipulation of the body. We're listening to the wisdom of the body, and sometimes the body needs healing before it wants to actually make those adjustments.
Sometimes the body needs deep rest, and it's not something that we allow time for in our culture.
Right. What types of conditions does this kind of therapy address? So what type of things can be wrong with me that I should say, I need to go see someone that does cranial sacral therapy?
Well, I wouldn't say that things are wrong with you. I would say that there are symptoms that rise up to let us know that we need attention.
Got you.
So really anything can work with cranial sacral therapy. We work with infants from the time that they are born.
Really?
My oldest patient was probably 101 years old.
Really?
So it's for all ages.
Are there any conditions that maybe should not be addressed with cranial sacral therapy?
The only condition or contraindication is when someone has had an acute or a new brain injury. And at that time, we do not want to go in and begin manipulating the nervous system in the body because it can interfere with the body's natural way of healing. Usually once we get past that stage, then we can come in and help to support what needs to happen.
Got you. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And what type of education does a cranial sacral therapist receive in order to be knowledgeable enough to do this type of therapy? Because I'm hearing a lot of physiology, I'm hearing biology, I'm hearing intuition, I'm hearing energy work. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of different manipulations. And of course, before you answer this, I want to mention the fact that you hold a host of degrees, okay? So this is not like something you went to a local place and took a 3-day weekend course to learn to do this, and now you're just kind of woo-woo following your intuition about it. This is some serious science and work that's going into it. I mean, when I'm looking at your degrees and certifications, these range from a BS in nursing, master's in social work, Reiki master, you're an ordained minister, a licensed massage therapist, specialties in aromatherapy, PTSD. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, I could go on with this for 20 minutes. So your pieces and bits of information, you're using a lot here in these sessions. So from the very basic level, what type of education is required, not exceedingly like you, but what's the basic?
Well, quite honestly, Dr. Upledger began this work teaching teachers.
Really?
So they have no background necessarily in any kind of anatomy or physiology. He wanted to provide a technique that anybody could do.
Really?
So he was doing a research program with teachers and working with autistic children. And that's where he developed the 10-step protocol, so that it would be something he could teach and you could learn it, and your teacher or caregiver could learn it and work with your family member at home to be able to support the work.
Wow.
Yes. So there are introductory classes that anyone can take. And that's just so that you can do the work yourself. Beyond that, there are much more advanced classes. And in my particular case, I was interested in working with people with post-traumatic stress injury. So my education and training took a track that really focused on the full impact of working with people with trauma.
Got you. And I want to go straight into that, because you do work with a specific population of individuals that are suffering from PTSD, amongst maybe some other things sometimes. But let's talk about your work with the Columbia Resilience Integrated Health Clinic, because this is some big stuff that you're doing, and it's really advanced, given what most people would expect to be the norm, right? So let's talk about this clinic, because this is good stuff you're doing.
Oh, thank you for that. The clinic really came out of an idea of how do we make this kind of work more accessible to people. As you said early in the program, people never even heard of cranial sacral therapy, so they wouldn't know how to access it, or even that it was something they could access it. And so I began early in my practice to open a ministry that would allow people who experienced trauma and could not pay for services or could not easily access them to come and be able to get treatment. And so that ministry sort of morphed into the idea of becoming a clinic when we've added additional practitioners. And ultimately, Columbia Resilience, which is a nonprofit organization, picked us to sponsor us to work for their community integrative health program.
Right.
And this clinic, in partnership with Sexual Trauma Services of the Midlands, began working with women and men eventually who experience sexual trauma.
Right.
Yes.
And this is huge. And the reason I wanted to really dig in and talk about this program is because, as many of our viewers will be aware, and even with us, is that individuals that have been suffered from any type of sexual assault typically might have a reaction of not really wanting to be touched. And so what's amazing to me about this program is that you get these people to become comfortable enough that they're, like me, laying down, passing out, relaxing, going into a deep state of meditation and relaxation. And yet normally, probably when they start this program, they're very tense, very stressed, would not want someone to touch them just simply due to symptoms of their assault. So can we talk a little bit about that process of really from a person coming in from the first steps, and then really from a person coming in from the first steps to being comfortable enough to be able to lay on a massage table and have this manipulation? I mean, what's that like? I mean, does it happen very quickly, or?
Well, as you said, most people come in feeling very guarded, and they're very vulnerable because trauma itself, whether it's a sexual assault or combat or emotional abuse, tends to bring people into a space where they become very isolated, where they sort of draw in on themselves, and the idea of having to do anything outside of that becomes overwhelming. When women come into our clinic, generally they're in that state. They're fearful, they do not want to talk about their experience, and they're really worried about how their body is going to respond to touch in general because they have been so violated. Our clinic is very informal, so that's number one. We tell people who come in that this is not to talk about your story. It's not necessarily to talk about what happened to you. It is about how you are coping now. So what's happening in your body now, this moment, this very present moment? How are you feeling? What's going on for you? And as we have that conversation, what do you need to help you to be able to relax?
Right, and that's
Yes.
one of the things I'm going to interject is that a lot of treatments that we have, because one of my specialties is in sexual abuse in children and adolescents. And one of the problems that we have with most of the therapies that we would talk to individuals about is that they're re-victimized for every therapy they have to receive. Before they can get treatment, we've got to go back to the past, back to what happened, and talk about it for the 20th time, for the 30th time, and re-victimize these people. And the problem is that they'll avoid it. They don't want to receive the therapy because I don't want to talk about it anymore. You're supposed to be helping me. And so that's one of the key components that I really grabbed when you and I were talking about this program previously, is that you don't get re-victimized. We talk about the right now, whether your injury happened 20 years ago or 20 days ago. We're talking about where you are right now, because really that's all that's important.
Exactly.
Is what happened right this second. What's going on now, and how can we fix it?
Right, and so once people realize that you're willing to sit and listen to where they are now, that automatically puts them at ease, because here's someone paying attention to you, and not with an agenda to fix anything, but how are you right now? So we begin with that. We usually have a simple meal, and then I will do some aromatherapy. So we use a light scent like orange, just to help calm down the body. We know aromatherapy stimulates the brain centers, but in a way that brings the body into balance. So already we're activating a scent to help calm things. And then the invitation is to the person, would you like to come on the table and experience this kind of work? And generally they would be hesitant getting on the table, but once we put hands on the body, it's with the understanding that, again, that touch, it's not about manipulating the body. The touch is really about connecting with the body where it is now. So it's a different intention just coming in. It's not to fix it, it's to listen. And in the listening, people then are able to respond in kind by letting go of some of that guarding.
Right.
Again, because they know that we're connecting with you individually, not as a fixture, but as a partner.
Right. Pam, thank you so much for coming today and talking with us about this. I think you're doing amazing work. I mean, it's truly a blessing to this population to have a resource like this that they can be directed to, that they can participate in. I mean, this is huge and this is key, and hopefully a lot of other cities can look at this program and this model and really incorporate it with their healing process of sexual trauma.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming in today. And thank you all for watching the show. If you want more information on Pam, you can check out our website at fengshui-it.com. You can get contact information directing you straight to Pam to find out more about what she does. And if you stay tuned, you'll catch your next DIY Designovation tip. Up next is your DIY Designovation tip. We've talked about singing bowls and why we use them on a previous segment. So today I want to talk to you about how to choose the right bowl for you. Singing bowls are used to restore vibratory frequencies of the body, mind, and soul that are out of harmony and diseased. And since matter is energy that vibrates at different rates, the structure of matter can be changed when you alter the rate of vibration, allowing each cell and organ to resonate in harmony with the entire body. When this alignment occurs, health and healing all come into balance. So how do you choose a singing bowl? Traditional singing bowls are constructed of 7 metals, but you'll find singing bowls are made of a lot of different materials like quartz, gemstones, and even glass. But for the purpose of this segment, I'm going to talk about the traditional metal bowl. Each of the 7 metals correspond to the sun, the moon, and our solar system planets. Gold represents the sun and is the ultimate yang energy. Silver represents the moon and yin energy. Copper represents Venus. Iron represents Mars. Tin represents Jupiter. Lead represents Saturn. And zinc represents Mercury. Antique bowls were typically made of a combination of all 7 metals, including a highly prized meteoric iron that the Tibetans call sky metal. Modern bowls are made of a type of bronze, which is a mix of copper and tin called bell metal. If you purchase an antique singing bowl, do not expect it to look new.
Antique bowls are at least 100 years old and may have been used for a variety of different things, so most likely they're going to show signs of aging and wear. With that being said, you should always expect that the bowl you purchase will be delivered intact, with no dents, cracks, fractures, stains, or any major blemish or flaw that's not stated prior to your purchase. When you're ready to purchase your first singing bowl, look for the one that appeals to you in color, size, shape, and of course, most importantly, the sound. Every bowl has a slightly different sound, and you will actually notice that different spaces and environments causes the bowl to resonate just slightly different. Also, your own energy, which changes throughout the day, will cause your bowl to sound a little bit different when you play it as well. Each bowl will come with a mallet. The type of mallet that it comes with the bowl can vary anything from one covered in fabric, which is like this one right here, or covered in rubber, or just a plain wooden one like these right here. It's really just personal preference which one you prefer. Everyone has, one that they choose to use more than the others. And sometimes the singing bowl will come with a small pillow, and these are like the little small pillows, and there's different kinds. Here's a little bit larger one. But a rule of thumb is that cheap bowls are more likely to be poor quality, or they're just brand new and not made as well as some of the older ones. You'll want to test the bowl before you buy it. So to test the bowl before you purchase it, I encourage you to always pick it up and feel how the bowl feels in your hand. So you'll just grab it and just let it sit there for a while. And before you play it, you always want to wake up the bowl first. And so you can simply wake up the bowl with one chime, one tap, or you can do a series of taps. And then you're going to run the mallet all around the singing bowl and allow the sound to resonate your space. Ultimately, rely on your intuition. If you're drawn to a particular singing bowl above all the other ones, then that most likely is the one that's meant for you. It's important for you to know that singing bowls are very fragile and should never be dropped or mishandled. And once a bowl is damaged, it cannot be repaired. I suggest that you not allow people to handle your bowls, because when they see it, they want to pick it up and they want to play it. Remember to check out my DIY Designovation tip on how to properly use your singing bowl. And as always, visit our website at fengshui-it.com for this and other great ideas you can do at home. This has been your DIY Designovation tip.
And now it's your turn. Thanks for following me. So today's Wonder Why Wednesday question comes from Monica on our Facebook page. And if you want to submit a question on the Wonder Why Wednesday Facebook page, question of the day, you can check out all of that information right here below in the description, and you can send your question in so you have a chance to win some really cool Feng Shui gear. So let's get to Monica's question. Monica asked us, what items should I have on my mantle or around my fireplace? And she included some really cute little emojis after that of fire. So thanks so much, Monica, for submitting that question. Fireplaces are a really exciting topic in Feng Shui. When we're talking about what we should include on a mantle of a fireplace, the first thing we must consider is where this fireplace is located in relation to the Bagua map, right? So if your fireplace is in the fame and reputation section or gua in your home, and we really want to increase that fire energy at that point. So we're going to add things that are going to make more fire. So things like candles or the color red, burnt oranges, purples, and all that kind of stuff that signify fire. But say that fireplace is located in our career gua, right? The career gua is really is charged by the element of water. We don't want to add fire there, so we're going to want to do things to kind of mask the energy, the fire energy coming from that fireplace. So our mantle would then include things that represent water. We're going to have things that are blues, navy blues, blacks, that are all that water energy. Another thing we're going to do in order to
combat the energy of the fire energy for fireplaces, mirrors. Mirrors represent the water element, so we're going to throw a big mirror on top of that mantle to help die down some of that fire, to cause disruptions within the Bagua reading of the home. So again, it's according to where that fireplace is according to what we're going to place on our mantle. As a just kind of a general rule, if you're not really sure which Kwa your fireplace falls into, because either you just started with Feng Shui or you don't really quite know yet, and you don't have a Feng Shui consultant that's available to tell you what section that is of your house, as just a general rule, my best advice would be to have a combination of things on your mantle that would include things that are water, metal, and earth elements, and that way you have just a really good balance. It's not too excessive, and it's not reducing that energy too much. I wish there was a quick and easy answer when we're talking about fireplaces, but unfortunately it is a lot of work around fireplaces. So you can always contact the show and send in more questions on our Facebook page. Like I said, information down here below in our description section, and we look forward to having your questions. Thanks for following us, guys.